Some people say to me, why do you take the same type of photograph? I'm like, because it's different for them. What's really weird is I remember them all. That's the strangest thing. So people come in and I go, I've met you before. And they go, yeah, you took my photo. And the value of a print is much more than the value of a digital image. When you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, really. Rankin Live is a photographic experience that I came up with in 2009. With the advent of digital, I thought that the whole idea of being in a studio and everything being behind closed doors could suddenly be opened up, and you could take a photograph and you could have it come up on a projection immediately. And it kind of made me feel that suddenly this thing I'd been doing for nearly 20 years was could be a bit more of a performance. And I could let people that weren't used to what this is like see how it worked. Almost like taking, you know, the audience that I really love and being able to show them what it would be like to be a celebrity and be on the cover of a magazine and to do a shoot like they were famous. And since 2009, I've probably photographed, you know, over 20,000 people. And it's been an amazing experience. It's really made me kind of like have almost a sort of first-hand view on how the audience has changed, how people's relationship with photography's changed. And I wanted to do this experience here in Carnaby Street because I'd always wanted to do a store, and I also wanted to have a kind of an event that people could look at through the window, and like literally people could walk past. Just doing it in Carnaby Street was a kind of dream, to be able to do it in a shop window and really make it very, very public facing and see how it, you know, was how people responded to it, how it was taken. And it's been very interesting that so many people are photographing us through the window or coming even now and looking at what we're doing. But it's evolved a lot. And also the other thing that's really interesting about it is, and it's something I should have realised, I should have been able to think it through, was that we would be creating something that people would want to use as a memorial, you know, memorialising a moment in their life. And that's become a real trend in the last few weeks, that suddenly people are they're talking to me about very big life moments or experiences, some of them which are really difficult to talk about actually, because they involve death and having a terminal illness and things like that. So that's been a real shift. I think one of the most interesting things about having photographed that many people that are not used to being in front of a professional camera, one of the things that probably the most important thing I've learned actually, is that my instinct for the person I'm photographing has become so fine-tuned that I have a kind of very unique understanding of what people are about very quickly. And it's a little bit like the Malcolm Gladwell concept of, you know, I don't know, a guitarist or a football player or a driver, you know, doing something for 10,000 hours, and then by the 10,000th hour you have really honed your skills in. And that's quite hard to define when you talk about it, because it feels very bit strange. But actually, when I started it in 2009, I think we did 3,500 people in the first 3 months, and by the end of that, my photography was 100 times better, like without question. Not just because I was more in tune, which was the thing that I took away that was really important, but I just got better at taking photographs. So I think that there's a lot of kind of similarities between people, which you start to pick up on, and characteristics, especially the kind of what people look like visually. But like, you know, their physical characteristics, there's a lot of similarities. But essentially, what's brilliant is that everybody's very unique. So Some people say to me, why do you take the same type of photograph? I'm like, because it's different for them. You know, this isn't a project of me going, I want to take a different picture of each person. I want to take a picture that the person really loves and takes away and enjoys and looks back on and has a kind of, you know, memory. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about commercial photography is we've lost this idea of creating memories, especially with artificial intelligence, and it's like they're almost fabricated memories, whereas the actual memory of a photograph and a moment and the time you spend with someone it's a very special thing, especially for that person that is paying for it. And then, you know, hopefully 10 years later they're coming back, which they have been doing whilst we've been doing this project here, and showing me the pictures that I took of them. And what's really weird is I remember them all. That's the strangest thing. So people come in and I go, I've met you before, and they go, yeah, you took my photo. And so it's quite lovely to kind of feel part of. And I didn't realise that. This is something I'm only just realising, that we're creating these memories, and that goes back to what originally I think photography was probably originally invented for, which was to capture moments in time and retain that image to help with memories. So I think the ubiquitous use of camera phones and the digitization of those types of things undermines the existence of the memory in it, because most of those images are probably going to be lost, let's be really honest. And however many times phone makers say that it's going to enhance that, it's actually probably the opposite. And I think when a phone maker actually, a couple of them are really trying to instill this idea of let's make something that's special, and there are apps that can help you create printed versions of these. I think that people should be doing that more as opposed to relying on the cloud. Print is inherently the way to retain memories, because retain the images, retain the feeling, the actual feeling of the image, and I've always loved that. So it's something that I've perpetuated right from the beginning of my career. I've always done shows, I've always done exhibitions, I've sold my work from a very early point in my career. And even now, like I think that the more photographers can try and do that, it's the value of a print is much more than the value of a digital image. It's a thing. It's in reality. It's in real life. And to me, that's super special. I've got hundreds of prints, if not thousands. I've got hundreds of prints in my life. You know, I have prints on my walls. That idea of putting something up for exhibition, or putting something up just to make you feel good, like to decorate, to again, remember, I've got loads of family pictures in my house, and I think that kind of representation of that stuff is so exciting. So I'm a big believer in print, and one of the things we wanted to do here at Carnaby Street was create prints immediately that people could walk away with, because there's something so brilliant. The technology has got to the point where you can print something where the quality is that high that it's gonna last for a long, long time, probably a lot longer than your cloud and your digital images, which seem to disappear anyway. Kept into a brand that I can trust, and I think the quality is exceptional. For me to be able to take a picture, you know, project it on a wall, and then put it into print and hand it to someone, which takes about sometimes it's 5 minutes, you know. In fact, people just sit and look at the pictures for longer than it takes to print them. So that in itself is exciting, and then the quality of the print is solid. So, which, you know, and that print will last a long time. If you want to be a professional photographer, you need to really love what you do, like, so much that it becomes an obsession. I always find that when people kind of get into my industry and they want to do a 9 to 5 or a 10 to 6, it makes me laugh, because I've not met one creative that's successful that works those hours. And when people say, why are you working Saturday, why are you working Sunday, why are you still working, why are you still, I'm like, because I love it. It's like, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, really. But you've got to be prepared for that. You can't, if you think you can just dial it in, you know, phone it in, and you know, obviously you've got to get a work-life balance a little bit, but the reality is you've got to be very hardworking, very resilient. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to take pictures that people want to then buy. And what I mean by that is, people will not commission you unless they see a photograph that they want to recreate for themselves, for something, for whatever it is, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a portrait, whether it's an ad campaign. And if you don't have that stuff in your portfolio, you're very, very unlikely. Like, I'd say the chances of getting commissioned to do something you haven't done before are 0.1%, maybe 1%. With me, maybe 3% if I'm lucky. And I'll sometimes do things for nothing to get it in my portfolio. But they're the basics. And then the other thing is a business. It's like, a lot of people think it's an art form. And yes, it is an art form on lots of levels, but it's a business. If you don't understand it's a business, you're going to fall at the first hurdle. The first day I picked up a camera and looked through it and took a photograph that I loved was the day that was a light bulb moment for me. And because of that, I worked my ass off to continue to do it, because when you are given the gift of doing what you love as a job, like, you should not take it lightly.